Companies that serve as an intermediary between buyers and sellers have to choose how much control they take regarding the transactions. If they choose to take full control, we classify them as resellers. This means that the company decides to buy the products themselves and resells them at a higher price. A good example is Carrefour. If the company decides to have little control, which means they do not buy anything but act as an invisible connector to bring buyers and sellers together, the company is called a multi-sided platform. Airbnb is an example of this type of company. A third option would be to be a mixture of both, which indicates they buy and take control over some of the products but not all of them. A good example is iTunes, but will be discussed later on.
Another example is Amazon.
Multi-sided platforms have been a popular strategy decision over the past decade. This is because of two main reasons. Firstly, the appealing look. It's the fact that multi-sided platforms take a cut from each transaction instead of buying products themselves. As a result, operating costs are low and the percentage margins are high. A second reason is because of the success that these type of companies have, where eBay is the best example. In this presentation, we will discuss the following aspects: how to choose the right model, startup and growth, and disruption and disintermediation. So let's start with how to choose the right model to create significantly more value to your firm. As mentioned before, we can choose between two options. First of all, controlling or owning the offerings you sell. Secondly, acquiring and then reselling the products or services. Or maybe a mixture of both might be the best to your firm. By making this decision, 4 factors should be taken into account: scale effects, aggregation effects, the experiences of buyers and sellers, and market failures. Let me explain the first one, scale effects. As a manager, you should ask yourself if your product belongs to the category of high demand products or low demand products. This last group is also known as long-tail products. If you're part of the first category, the high-demand products, one large reseller will be more efficiently. Due to an increased output, the per-unit fixed cost will be lower, which we call economies of scale. As we said earlier, Amazon acts as a mixture of a multi-sided platform and a reseller. Amazon decided to act as a reseller for high-demand products, but as a multi-sided platform for long-tail products. Secondly, the aggregation effects. This means that if we take some goods or services together, they will be much more worth than if traded separately. By consequence, being a reseller will be better than organizing a multi-sided platform. For example, Apple, who acts as a reseller for the iTunes iPod combination. They use a give away the blades to sell the razor pricing strategy. In other words, Apple set their price for music quite low so they could realize high margins on the sale of iPods. Remark that they don't apply this strategy for their App Store. A multi-sided platform is much more interesting because of the thousands of app developers who wouldn't be happy with a uniform price. A third factor that should be kept in mind by choosing the right model are the experiences of buyers and sellers. One of the objectives of a multi-sided platform is to match buyers with the right kind of sellers and vice versa. On the other hand, choosing to act like a reseller is preferable in 2 situations. Firstly, when one of the 2 parties don't want to deal with multiple agents, and secondly, when the product or service needs a good seller experience. And last but not least, market failures. The main reasons for market failure is uncertainty about product quality or about the reliability of sellers or suppliers. Many multi-sided platforms have solved this problem without moving to a reseller model. For example, Airbnb provides a feedback system to keep both sides honest. This doesn't mean that this kind of mechanism always guarantees quality and reliability. Sometimes we should move closer to the reseller model by exerting more control over transactions. Another reason for market failure might be if one side has an information or bargaining advantage over the other. By consequence, the weaker party will be unlikely to participate, but the reseller model might be the solution for this. We do have a remark on this. We think that all elements mentioned before do not necessarily lead to the same solution. And if they do so, success isn't guaranteed. In fact, it will always be a matter of trial and error. Startup and growth. Once you have made the decision to be either a reseller or a multi-sided platform, you can start your business in the chosen model. However, it is important to understand that you won't always get there immediately. It may be possible that you need to start out as a reseller, even though you should be a multi-sided platform in the long run, and vice versa. There are two main reasons for this phenomenon: the catch-22 problem and limited capital. Firstly, the catch-22 problem. Imagine you are a startup and you've done the previous analysis and it turns out that the multi-sided platform model is the best for you. When starting out, it is likely that buyers and sellers won't match up. This means that buyers won't enter your platform because you don't have enough sellers, and sellers won't join your platform because you don't have enough buyers. There are two solutions to this problem. Either you focus on a small niche and grow from there, like eBay, or you resort to the seller model for a short period of time, like Amazon. Secondly, limited capital. If the result from the analysis is that your business should ultimately be a reseller and needs to grow fast, it is likely that you will lack the resources for this. It could be better to operate as a multi-sided platform for a while, as it enjoys lower capital and operating costs.
On this topic, we can make a second remark. The solutions that are proposed to both of these problems are actually quite contradictory. The catch-22 problem states that a solution could be to start out as a reseller, whereas the limited capital problem states that you should resort to a multi-sided platform. This is, as you can see, very contradictory and could lead your thinking path towards a vicious circle.
Disruption and disintermediation. The upswing of the internet and mobile communication made the multi-sided platform model very powerful and widespread. It has become easier for buyers and sellers to interact directly with each other in new online marketplaces. This might be a threat for existing reseller model companies. Traditional middlemen are no longer needed in a multi-sided platform model, and they become outdated. This is what happens in the typical disruption scenario. For example, eBay rendered collectible stores obsolete, and Kindle is an online self-publishing platform. It challenges traditional book publishers. However, the exact opposite might happen too. This is called the reverse disruption scenario. Upstart resellers often achieve advantages by aggregating demand or supply. For example, they often have power to obtain lower prices from suppliers. In this way, upstart resellers are challenging established multi-sided platforms too. It's important to understand that the online multi-sided platform isn't the ideal business model for everyone. Managers should not rush into this new model. They need to consider where on the multi-sided platform continuum their company belongs and what is the best strategy for their kind of market. This position needs to be re-evaluated as the competitive landscape changes. Also, it isn't that simple to switch your business model to the other side of the continuum. It requires one or more steps to get there. Our critical remark on this is rather positive. It's indeed important that firms are aware that multi-sided platforms aren't always the ultimate strategy decision, even though it might seem like that. We think it's important to carefully look whether you should change your business model or not. In addition, we also think it's necessary to look for your own firm and not just look at all the other firms in your particular sector. We would like to thank you for your attention and we hope that you learned something through our presentation.